Well, it looks like that Biden has really botched his pullout from Afghanistan. It was supposed to be stable enough so he could leave and at least give the appearance that we weren't just cutting and running, and we would be able to, have a degree of stability for a period of time, maybe do some diplomacy, and then, of course, it probably all falls in anyhow. I think that was what was always expected. But instead, he's pulled out in such great haste that the thing is falling like a string of dominoes. And now we're having to send 3,000 troops in there to try to cover for the withdrawal of the American personnel and the Afghan interpreters that would probably be lined up against the wall as soon as the Taliban take over. So this is a developing story and has a lot of potential pitfalls in it. For one thing, our 3,000 troops may very well find themselves in combat with the Taliban, depending on how the Taliban decide to play this out. So, anyway, if you want to see these videos, please give me a subscribe and give me a like to help out with the algorithm, and you can click the bell to be notified. So, anyway, moving on. Yeah, that is the other blunder that's clearly in this is the pullout was ordered during what's called the fighting season over there. During the summer, the Taliban come out and do a lot of operations, but they tend to be a lot more low, not as aggressive during the winter times. So that would have given them a lot more cover for you to wait to the beginning of winter to pull out, and that way things have been a little slower. But they did it in the middle of fighting season, and so now we're really in the middle of a situation that's developing very rapidly. People are making comparisons to the fall of Saigon during the end of the Vietnam War back in 1975. However, the situation isn't quite the same. First of all, in the situation we had in the Vietnam War, in that period, the situation was quite a bit different in that the Congress had cut off a lot of those supplies and logistical support to the South Vietnamese military, and it was considerably atrophied by the time of the 1975 North Vietnamese offensive occurred. In the meantime, the Soviet Union had supplied a large quantity of tanks to the North Vietnamese military, so that instead of them falling to a guerrilla campaign, it was a full-out conventional invasion with armor and artillery and so forth. And meanwhile, a lot of the equipment that the South had wasn't operative because they didn't have adequate spare parts and the like, so it's a little bit different. Here we have well provisioned the Afghan security forces and have provided all sorts of support. There's been no real cutoff of aid to them at all when this debacle started, and yet they don't seem to be able to hold anything hardly. And I think what we're beginning to realize here is that this Afghan security force was kind of like a Potemkin village. I'm hearing rumors that, like, for instance, people were taking the aid and putting out false reports on how many troops that they'd recruited and so forth. And so a lot of it was an empty shell. And I have another suspicion, which is that the Afghan security forces have probably been heavily infiltrated by the Taliban. And while some of them did, terrorist attacks and shot some Americans during training and so forth, we've heard those situations back in the past. I suspect that some of the smarter and more clever ones didn't do that. They basically did a good job and advanced to in rank into power positions. And so when this offensive started, and with the announcement that the U.S. was rapidly pulling out, they started sabotaging the effort to fight the Taliban. This can be done in many ways, either just giving intel to the Taliban, or giving orders which would put them in bad positions, or but even order them to surrender because they don't have a chance, or any number of double crosses could be being committed here at this point in time, which probably explains the rapid collapse of the situation. Because unlike what was coming at the South Vietnamese in 1975, this is not a very strong, well-equipped army that's coming at them. It may be determined and fierce, but one would think that given the magnitude of assistance that these people have provided and the weapons they have, if they were putting up any kind of fight at all to speak of, this couldn't be unraveling this rapidly. So my thinking is that there's a lot of sabotage by infiltrators going on at the same time. And probably also maybe other people are simply heading for the hills to get out of Dodge before they get put up against the wall themselves, So it's a real mess. But the problem here for the Biden administration and the American troops is we're sending 3,000 troops into the middle of this mess right now. We have embassy personnel there. We have, I'm sure there are some contractors there as well, which probably are trying to get out, plus the interpreters and other people that have allied themselves with the U.S. involvement. And so all sorts of atrocities are being committed. I guess young girls are getting forcefully married to Taliban fighters, and a few other things happening to people, I think, and really nasty stuff like you'd expect. And so this is looking like it's not going to last too long. However, it may turn out that when you get down to the final defense of the Capitol, maybe there'll be a little bit more resistance. I mean, we'll see how that turns out, if it turns into a massive street battle. And the question is, will U.S. troops get drawn into that street battle, or will they be able to keep out of it? It is possible that the Taliban will agree to basically let us extricate our people and not close in for the final kill until we're ready to leave, or they may have a more ulterior motive to actually try to inflict some damage on the way out. And the idea that these people really care about diplomatic niceties, I think, is an illusion at best. But anyhow, this has obviously been poorly thought out, and I guess it's really a sad thing when you consider the sacrifice that's been made by American soldiers and Marines in this battle for all these years, 20 years of this stuff, to have it completely fall apart like this. And of course, there are other aspects to this. For instance, the Chinese have their eyes on some rare earth minerals in the, I guess it's in the northwestern part of Afghanistan, and so there's some interest there. And of course, the Russians I think they'll probably stay out, but I think they're in, I think it's Tajikistan. They have an ally there, and I think they have troops there. So there's a lot of instability that may spread here. Like also, I guess there's a possibility could this instability spread toward Pakistan as well. So, which is, by the way, a nuclear power. So, I mean, this is not as simple as it might seem sometimes, and I think we need to take this a little bit seriously, to say the least. Plus, it looks like this will then become another base for terrorism, although there are other bases for terrorism as well, and I suppose our own security, internal security, is a lot better now than it was back in 2001 in terms of, well, it isn't quite as easy to hijack airplanes as it used to be and so forth, I don't suppose. But however, when we look at what's going on the southern border, it wouldn't be that hard for terrorists to get into the country, it would seem, right? If they were to simply disguise themselves as one of those immigrants from across the world looking for a better life. And so, at any rate, I decided to kind of address these issues and kind of how we're going here. Of course, I guess the Congress is out of session at the moment. The other thing I'd like to mention briefly at the end is, I guess this judge down in Alabama has kind of done a double dip on it. On the one hand, she's claimed that the Biden order on the evictions was illegal, but on the other hand, because of some precedent that I guess it would be the 10th Circuit Court, I guess the one in Atlanta, has set that that she's not going to rule against what the administration did. So I suppose we're off to the appellate court level, which will probably sustain what she's decided, and then we'll have to see what the Supreme Court does or doesn't do, since the lower courts are on the other side of where the Supreme Court's previous ruling is. And that's something to be looking forward to, seeing what happens there. Okay, well, I'll close this for now, and like I say, if you can follow me on social media to get my latest thoughts, particularly on Twitter, but I also post on Gab and Parler. So until next time.